The three men were caught in a tense stillness, the midday sun glaring down without mercy. The two middle-aged men crouched on either side of the gray car, their movements hurried but careful, working on the flat tire with a practiced familiarity. The sound of their tools clicking and scraping against the rubber was the only noise breaking the silence. Their dark shirts and pants, slightly dusty from the roadside, contrasted sharply against the bright asphalt beneath them. Every so often, one glanced nervously at the horizon or the road behind as if expecting something, or someone. The man standing to the right, with the U.S. Marshal printed boldly in yellow on the back of his dark shirt, watched intently. His stance was alert, shoulders squared, hands resting near his waist, ready to draw at a moment's notice. His eyes flicked from the two men to the road, scanning for any signs of trouble. The firearm-like object strapped to his back was not, just for show. It seemed to pulse with potential energy, waiting for a trigger. His face was calm but focused, the kind of calm that only comes with years of experience. In the background, the grassy lawn stretched lazily, untouched and peaceful, but the scene on the road felt anything but tranquil. The bright, natural light cast no shadows, just a stark daylight clarity that made everything visible, everything exposed. It was as if the scene itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Suddenly, one of the men working on the tire paused, his eyes narrowing. He looked toward the horizon, then down at the ground, as if sensing an unseen disturbance. Without a word, he gestured subtly to his partner, who responded with a slight nod. The tension in the air grew thicker, almost palpable. The man standing stiffened slightly, his hand subtly shifting toward his holster, eyes narrowing into a sharper focus. "Hey," one of the tire men whispered, voice low but tense. "Did you see that?" The other man didn't answer immediately. His gaze was fixed ahead, where a dark sedan was approaching rapidly from the distance. The vehicle's tires squealed slightly as it braked sharply on the asphalt, kicking up a small cloud of dust. It stopped just a few yards away, engine humming softly, the windows tinted dark. The tension skyrocketed. The standing marshal's eyes flicked to the vehicle, then to the two men working on the tire. "Stay sharp," he ordered softly, voice even but commanding. "Something's not right." The driver's side door of the sedan swung open and a figure emerged, clad in dark clothes, hooded, quick to look around. The figure moved with purpose, heading straight toward the roadside helpers with a calculated urgency. The men on the ground froze, their hands still on the tools, eyes wide with cautious suspicion. "Who are you?" one of the tire men called. "Out," voice cautious. The figure paused, then pulled down the hood, revealing a face that was tense but familiar. A face that didn't belong here, not in this moment. The man's eyes darted to the marshal, then back to the others. "I'm not here to talk," he said sharply, voice edged with urgency. "You need to pack it up. Now." The marshal's hand twitched toward his gun, but he didn't draw. His voice was steady, measured. "Who are you? What's your business here?" The man's eyes flicked nervously to the road behind him, as if expecting someone or something to appear. "It's not safe," he said. "They're coming. You don't want to be involved in this." The tire man on the left exchanged a glance with his partner, both sensing that this was no ordinary roadside assistance. Something was wrong, dangerous, and it was about to escalate. The man in the hoodie reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper. He handed it to the marshal. "Read it," he said simply. The marshal unfolded the paper carefully. It was a photograph, grainy, but clear enough. A face, familiar, with a red mark across the cheek, a name, and below it a date and time scrawled, hurriedly in ink. The moment the marshal saw it, his expression changed. His jaw tightened. "This isn't good," he muttered, voice barely above a whisper. "Exactly," the man in the hoodie whispered back. "They're closer than you think. We don't have much time." Before anyone could respond, a distant siren wailed, echoing down the highway. The sound was faint, but growing louder. The tension snapped tight like a wire. The three men exchanged looks, each knowing that whatever was coming, their world was about to change forever, and the roadside, once quiet and ordinary, was now the epicenter of something much bigger than just a flat tire. The next few moments would determine who lived, who lost, and what secrets lay buried beneath the calm surface of this seemingly innocent day. The distant wail of sirens grew louder, echoing ominously down the highway and piercing the tense silence that had settled over the roadside. The three men remained frozen, each weighing their options in the fleeting seconds before danger arrived. The man in the hoodie clutched the photograph tightly, eyes darting nervously toward the approaching sound, while the two tire men instinctively shifted closer to the Marshal, their hands trembling slightly but their faces set with resolve. Without warning, the air shifted. A sudden gust of wind swept across the road, carrying with it a faint scent of smoke and something metallic, sharp. The sky, clear just moments ago, seemed to darken subtly as clouds gathered overhead, rolling in with unnatural speed. The ominous atmosphere thickened, pressing down on everyone present as if nature itself sensed the storm approaching. The Marshal's gaze snapped to the horizon, his instincts kicking in. He was no stranger to danger, but this felt different. Something was coming, something bigger than just a roadside incident. His grip tightened on his firearm, but he kept it holstered, knowing that rushing in blindly could be fatal. He had learned long ago that often, patience and observation were the best weapons. The man in the hoodie loosened his grip on the photograph, eyes flickering between the approaching sirens and the gathering clouds. "We don't have much time," he muttered urgently. "They're already here and they're not alone." The tire men looked at each other, exchanging uncertain glances. One of them crouched slightly, reaching into his pocket to retrieve a crumpled pack of cigarettes. His trembling fingers hesitated before gripping one, as if unsure whether to light it or not. The other man, younger but no less tense, shifted his weight from one foot to the other, eyes darting toward the roadside, toward the shadows that now seemed to stretch unnaturally long, flickering in the dimming daylight. Suddenly, a sleek black vehicle roared past on the highway, its engines snarling loudly as it sped toward the scene. Behind it, more vehicles appeared, flashing lights, sirens blaring. They moved with purpose, relentless and precise. The convoy was closing in fast, and the tension ratcheted up another level. From the approaching cars, several figures emerged, uniformed officers, their faces stern and focused, their weapons drawn and ready. They spread out, taking positions, behind the cars, eyes scanning and guns aimed. Their presence was commanding, authoritative, but beneath that professionalism was an undercurrent of urgency. Something unexpected had already happened, something that had thrown everything into chaos. The man in the hoodie took a step back, eyes narrowing as he watched the scene unfold. "They're here," he said softly, almost to himself, "and I don't think they're here for a friendly chat." The Marshal's eyes flicked back to him. "Who are they?" "Agents, enforcers, whatever you want to call them. They're not here to help. They're here to find something, and they'll do anything to get it." The words hung heavy in the air, thickening the already charged atmosphere. The sirens blared louder, the vehicles screeching to a halt just yards away, and armed officers spilled out with purpose. The wind picked up again, swirling dust and debris around their feet as if nature itself was preparing for the storm. Suddenly, one of the officers shouted, "Freeze! Hands where I can see them." Their guns pointed directly at the group, but their eyes betrayed a mixture of suspicion and resolve. The tension snapped like a taut wire. The man in the hoodie quickly pulled the crumpled photograph from his pocket, holding it up for the officers to see. "We're not the problem," he said, voice trembling but firm. "We have information, important information, about what's coming." One officer hesitated, eyeing the photograph, then looked back at the group. "Step away from the vehicle," he ordered. "Now." The Marshal took a slow step forward, hands raised slightly in a gesture of peace. "Hold on," he said calmly. "We're all on the same side here. We don't want trouble, but we need answers. Fast." A tense silence fell over the scene as everyone stared at each other. On one side, heavily armed agents with a mission. On the other, a small group caught in the eye of an impending storm. The photograph's image burned into everyone's mind. The face with the red mark, the date, the time. It was a clue, a warning, and a key to something much larger than any of them could yet comprehend. The clouds above roiled ominously as the wind gusted stronger. Somewhere in the distance, a faint rumble of thunder echoed, like the distant rolling of a coming storm. The next few moments would decide whether they would stand united or be torn apart by forces beyond their control. The roadside had become a battlefield of secrets and shadows, and the truth hung just out of reach, waiting to be uncovered. The thunder rumbled faintly again, deeper this time, vibrating through the air like the heartbeat of an approaching tempest. The wind howled louder, whipping around the scene, tugging at clothes and stirring up dust that swirled in chaotic spirals. The tense standoff froze in place, each side assessing the other with wary eyes, knowing that one wrong move could ignite chaos. The police officers' guns remained trained, their fingers tense on the triggers, ready for action if necessary. Meanwhile, the small group of civilians, 2 tire men, the Marshal and the mysterious man in the hoodie, stood their ground, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and fear. The man in the hoodie clenched his fists, clutching the crumpled photograph tighter as if holding on to a lifeline. His eyes flicked nervously toward the darkening sky, then back to the officers, searching for any sign of hesitation or a crack in their armor. The Marshal's gaze was steady, meeting the officer's eyes directly, exuding calm authority amid the chaos. He knew that whatever was happening now was bigger than any of them, and that their survival depended on their ability to stay cool under pressure. Suddenly, a sharp command cut through the rising wind. "Lower your weapons. Everyone stand down." It was the lead officer, a tall man with a stern face and piercing eyes. His voice carried authority, yet there was a hint of cautiousness. He slowly lowered his gun, signaling his team to follow suit. The tension eased slightly, but the atmosphere remained charged. Danger still lurked just beneath the surface. The officer stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the group. "Who are you, really? And what's this about?" he demanded, gesturing toward the photograph. "You're not making much sense right now, but we're not here to start a fight. We just want to know what's going on." The man in the hoodie took a deep breath, then slowly raised his hands, palms outward, as if surrendering. "My name's Marcus," he said quietly, "and I've got information, important information, about what's coming. Something that could change everything." The Marshal, still cautious but sensing honesty in Marcus's voice, nodded slowly. "Go on," he urged softly. Marcus hesitated, glancing once more at the gathering storm clouds above. "There's a group, powerful, dangerous, who's after something buried, hidden, or maybe stolen. They're willing to do anything to get it, and I think they already know we're onto them. That's why they're here now." The police officer furrowed his brow. "You expect us to believe that? That some secret organization is after you because of some artifact or piece of intel?" Marcus's eyes flickered with a flicker of desperation. "It's not just an artifact," he whispered. "It's part of a bigger picture, something that could threaten national security. That's why I've been running, trying to keep it safe, trying to warn someone." A sudden, sharp crack of thunder echoed overhead, making everyone flinch. The wind whipped even harder, and the first heavy drops of rain began to fall, splattering, onto the pavement and the dusty ground. The storm was closing in fast, its presence undeniable now. The officers exchanged looks, their grip tightening on their guns again, sensing that time was rapidly running out. The lead officer spoke into his radio, issuing orders to secure the scene and prepare for an evacuation. "We need to get everyone out of here, now." The group started to move, instinctively retreating as the officers formed a perimeter. Marcus looked around, eyes darting to the approaching storm and the officers' determined faces. "You don't understand," he said urgently. "They're already here. They've sent someone who's dangerous, and they're not going to stop until they find what they want." As if on cue, a sleek black SUV screeched to a halt behind the officers, and 2 heavily armed men jumped out, rushing toward the scene. Their movements were deliberate, aggressive. Behind them, more vehicles appeared, a convoy of shadows racing closer with every heartbeat. It was clear that the storm was not the only threat now. The Marshal's eyes narrowed as he Watch the newcomers. Looks like we're not just dealing with the police anymore, he muttered, voice tense. We're in the middle of something much bigger, and it's about to get worse. The rain intensified, pelting down in sheets, drenching everyone in seconds. Lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in stark, fleeting images, shadows moving. Swiftly, figures emerging from the vehicles, their faces obscured but their intentions unmistakable. The air crackled with tension, and the storm's fury seemed to echo the chaos unfolding around them. In that moment, the skies roared louder than ever, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The unfolding chaos was no longer contained to the roadside. It had become the battleground of secrets, lies, and deadly pursuits. Everything was about to change, and none of them knew whether they would come out alive. Lightning tore across the darkened sky, illuminating the scene in stark white, flashes that cast long, jagged shadows over the chaos unfolding beneath. The pounding rain blurred the edges of everything, turning the world into a swirling mess of water and darkness. Amidst the storm's fury, the tense standoff reached a breaking point, the air thick with anticipation and dread. The convoy of vehicles slowed, then came to a halt as armed men spilled out and took defensive positions. Their guns trained on the group gathered at the roadside. The marshal's jaw clenched tightly, sensing that the moment had slipped past the point of no return. His eyes flicked between Marcus and the approaching enforcers, knowing that whatever revelations had been shared, they now stood on the edge of an abyss. The rain hammered down harder, drumming on the metal roofs and splattering onto the pavement, as if nature itself was unleashing its fury to match the chaos. Marcus's face was pale, streaked with rain and sweat, but his eyes burned with a desperate urgency. "They're already here," he said again, voice barely audible over the storm. "You have to believe me. If they get what they're after, if they find the truth, everything changes, and not for the better." The officer closest to Marcus took a cautious step forward, lowering his weapon just slightly. "Who are they, and what exactly is it that they want?" His voice was pitched with suspicion but edged with curiosity now, as he sensed that beneath Marcus's trembling words lay something far more dangerous than mere suspicion. Before Marcus could answer, a deafening crack of thunder shook the ground beneath their feet, and a blinding flash of lightning struck nearby, momentarily illuminating the entire scene in ghostly white. The figures from the convoy surged forward, their boots splashing through puddles, guns raised in unison. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his face, barked out orders to his team. "Secure the perimeter. Find the target." In that instant, a new figure emerged from the shadows, clad in dark tactical gear, eyes cold and calculating. With a swift motion, he drew a pistol, aiming it directly at Marcus. "You know too much," he said, voice low but commanding. "It's time you stopped running." The storm's fury reached its peak as the wind tore through the scene, whipping rain sideways and causing debris to whirl about like restless spirits. The air was thick with electricity, both literal and metaphorical, and every heartbeat felt amplified, pounding with a mixture of fear and defiance. The officers responded instinctively, raising their guns, but hesitation flickered in their eyes as they recognized the seriousness of the moment. Suddenly, from behind the enforcers, a low rumble echoed, more thunder or perhaps the distant sound of engines revving. The convoy's vehicles moved into position, blocking the road and sealing off any escape. The storm, the chaos, and the mounting danger all combined into a maelstrom of impending destruction. It was as if the world itself was warning them. This was no ordinary confrontation. The marshal stepped forward, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Everyone stand down," he commanded, voice ringing above the storm. "We don't want to escalate this further. We just need answers." His words were cut off by a sudden shout from one of the officers. "Move back! Get down!" The enforcers advanced, guns aimed, as the rain continued to pour relentlessly. Marcus looked around desperately, clutching the photograph to his chest as if it contained the only truth left in a world gone mad. "You have to believe me," he pleaded. "They're coming for something. And if they find it, nothing will be the same again." The tension cracked like a lightning bolt as a figure darted out from the shadows, an unknown cloaked in darkness, wielding an object that glittered ominously in the rain. The moment froze, the storm's fury seeming to pause as everyone stared, in shock and fear. And then, amidst the chaos, a voice cut through the tumult, sharp, commanding, and unwavering. "Stand down," it ordered. It was a voice that carried authority, the kind that made everyone pause. All eyes turned toward the source, and the scene held its breath, suspended between chaos and calm. The storm still raged overhead, but beneath it a fragile silence had fallen, a silence that would soon be shattered, irrevocably changing everything.